performing.
Sure. Listen, here's the deal. General Motors, AIG, Citigroup, and maybe Bank of America. These are entities now that are controlled by the government, and they're conduits for different things. One of the things that wouldn't happen last week that wasn't even talked about was General Motors lending a private equity fund in Beverly Hills $2 billion to buy Delphi. You know, this is nuts.
Wait. Say that again. Why?
General Motors.
Hear that?
General Motors, $2 billion to a private equity group, $2 billion so that they could buy Delphi out of bankruptcy. That's what they're doing. Just like AIG was a conduit to pay $100 billion to European banks that we didn't have to pay $100 billion to give Goldman Sachs an extra $12 billion.
This is, you know what, we should have known when President Obama was a community organizer. This is Acorn on a governmental scale. This is shifting the money and playing a shell game with the money.
Here's the unconstitutional aspect to all of this. The government is making up the rules as it's going along. Gretchen's parents haven't been given a set of standards as to why they were canceled. The other people weren't given a set of standards as to why they were reinstated just because they knew a senator from Minnesota. We weren't even told ahead of time the taxpayer dollars was going to be used to buy Delphi. So some czar somewhere is saying yes to this, no to that, and that subjective judgment is against the law.
And it gets worse, though, Glenn. It gets worse because by Friday, terminated dealers by GM have to sign what's called a wind-down agreement. And if they don't sign it, they have a gun to their head. They will not get any warranties on any of the vehicles that are currently sitting in their lots, which the judge tells me is illegal.
Federal law requires GM to fulfill the obligations under the warranty, and these gun-to-the-head contracts can't change that, and no court would enforce them.
And they have to close immediately. If it already wasn't bad enough,
how many cars does your family have on the lot? What do you have? 2 million, 4 million, 5 million? $4.5 million in product, and you can't sell them as of Friday? What are they going to do?
Don't sign the agreement. And also,
what are you going to do with it?
There's also a gag order in the agreement. A gag order that says you cannot speak to anybody other than your employees unless you get GM's consent.
Is fascism. I'm sorry to say it, America. Yeah. Am I wrong?
Well, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing. We were told it was going to happen. We were told that there was going to be redistribution of wealth. And that's all when you see a secured lender get 29 cents on the dollar and a union, a non-secured lender, get 43 cents plus 55% of the company, that's called redistribution of wealth. It was promised.
Help me out. I was trying to think of a way to be able to explain this. You'll be able to help.
Okay. I look like I'm the one who probably could play with those.
This is the way our economy works. This is the way, let's say, General Motors works. Okay. What they have is you have the bondholders. They're the first in line.
Right.
That's really the engine of our economy.
The secured bondholders.
Secure bondholders. That money's coming from all over the world.
Right.
This is the engine of any big company.
The law puts them first in line.
Correct. Okay. Then you have what? Stockholders are next, or just
preferred shareholders, unsecured bondholders.
Okay, good. And then you have
the stockholders.
Everybody else.
Right.
Okay. What we've done here, if I'm not mistaken, is these people are gone. They're out.
Right.
And these people have been put here.
Actually, you needed another train. The unions.
Use some M&Ms.
The unions. They were put in front of this. The workers were put in front. Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, let me ask you this, America. How long is that train going to run?
Well, how about this? When's the next time a company in trouble is going to be able to go and raise money from secured lenders?
Nobody.
And if they do, it's going to cost them a lot more than it should cost them.
Look, if they don't change this rule, no one is going to put their money here.
Do you know how long that guy's been in first place in American history? Secured bondholders come first. Since the beginning of the country, since we started to have a stock exchange and commercial transactions, and with no action of the Congress, no action of the state of legislature of Delaware, where GM and Chrysler are incorporated, a single federal judge bullied by the White House has changed 230 years of law and economic procedure.
Charles said that we knew we were getting ourselves into this, that President Obama said this is what he was going to do, but I don't think he said that there was going to be an assault on private enterprise.
No,
I submit to you that this is one of the most unpatriotic things.
Gretchen,
to shut down profitable businesses.
He is a guy who his whole life is riddled with Marxists. He is a progressive. And this is what progressives do. This is what they did in World War II that kept us in the Depression for 10 years. And nobody wants to listen to it. Everybody wants to live in their pie-in-the-sky world where, gosh, we can't be that. He's telling us this. And there's much more worse to come. In 15 minutes, we're going to do a break with these guys who are experts on the progressive movement.
The bottom line,
if you want to know what the future is, look to the past. I'll show it to you. It's frightening.
Glenn, I think the president, really, his goal is, in his mind, he wants to redress what he considers wrongs of yesteryear. And again, like, for instance, the wages. The page czar is a guy who really we got to be really afraid of. Because, you know, bailout companies now, if you took TARP money, the most money your CEO can make is $400,000. They want to make that the policy across the board.
What does that mean?
Because we have this pay gap, right? The average person and the CEO. Instead of doing it where we bring this up, which should be the goal of the president, we want to bring this down.
Right.
To close the gap.
But what does it mean that across the board? Anybody who
in other words, even if you didn't take TARP money,
so any company, this company.
If I'm running a major corporation, I have to worry that within a year or so, the government's going to dictate how much I make.
This is the Interstate Commerce Clause in the Constitution. They'll argue if the salary of the CEO adversely affects interstate commerce, they can regulate it. There's no such opinion in the history of the country that supports that, but that's what they'll do.
Okay. Now listen, America, when I believe it was the show that we got the... Wow.
That's a big fiat.
Can't you?
It is.
No,
I thought the fiats were tiny cars.
I know,
Glenn. That's a huge one.
No, they got to do something, you know, for regular people. You know. So anyway, when we got this, I said on that show, nobody's going to buy this. Nobody is going to buy this. So you watch. They're going to make all kinds of incentives, and you're going to be on the hook for even more. Guess what just was passed in the House? Cash for clunkers. We're now giving tax breaks for people to go out and buy a new car.
But to your point, though, if it doesn't work, this is what's really going to happen. If we decide that we don't want to buy itty-bitty cars that we haven't bought for the last 20 years, they're going to raise gasoline prices on us.
Oh, yes, they will.
They're also
by the way, just so you know, America, that's $4 billion today. $4 billion.
You cannot compete with the government. They'll put Ford out of business by giving you a tax credit for every one of these little tiny cars that you buy. The tax credits will be irresistible.
But it's also not a great deal if you're one of the dealerships in GM that's been spared, because guess what? They're not going to have contracts anymore. They're going to have ultimatums. They're not going to have contracts. So suddenly, if one day they don't measure up with their profitability, the company can come in and say you are done. So it's almost a crapshoot about whether or not you still even want to be a dealer.
Okay. So, America, let me just ask you a couple of things. Do you want to be in business for yourself in this kind of a situation? Do you want to invest in this kind of a situation? Do you trust that anything is going to be stable? Do you? Do you trust that anyone will buy bonds in our country? The thing that we have always had going for us is people knew we were a stable country. You can count on America to be stable. You can count on us innovating. You can count on people being entrepreneurs. But if they're going to limit your salary, if they're going to take your 90-year nest egg away and just tube it, and you can't count on the law anymore, well, what future do we have? Well, I'll show you the future. Because Treasury bonds, buying a bond, a T-bill, is like buying stock in the United States of America. Well, we're selling more of them this week than we have in a long time. Let me ask you, who's going to put their money and lock it down for 30 years? You believe in America 30 years with this kind of stuff happening? The answer to that question will predict our future.